everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who are new, my name is Natosha Fortini of Italian Citizenship Consulting, and I'm the admin of the Facebook group, How to Complete Your Italian Citizenship Application. So there's so much information out there about Italian citizenship by descent that it's very, very easy to feel overwhelmed and kind of like you're on a hamster wheel. So the focus of my services is a unique one-on-one coaching program that helps you complete your application from start to finish without having to spend a boatload of money on agencies to do it for you. So I go live every Sunday in my Facebook group, and I talk about a whole range of topics related to Italian citizenship by descent. But every so often, I feature a guest who talks to us about a topic that is of interest to those people who are seeking dual citizenship. In the past, I have had tax accountants, somebody who helps you move to Italy and find property. We have talked about taking a career break and traveling Italy and Europe as well. And today I am super, super excited because I know this is a topic that is very close to a lot of people's hearts. Is something that they really want to do, but also causes a lot of anxiety, especially for adults. And that is learning Italian. So please welcome our special guest, Danielle Di Pietro Hawkins. And she is going to talk to us today about learning Italian as an adult. So welcome, Danielle. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure. Hello, or buongiorno, I should say, to everybody.
Excellent. So how about we just start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and your story and how you learned Italian, because I think it's such an interesting story. And in the past, I have sort of reached out to a few different Italian instructors, and none of them they just didn't really seem to quite fit. But I love your story, and I just think it's perfect for the members in the Facebook group here today. So yeah, how about you just tell us a little bit about you?
Okay, great. Actually, I want to start with how you and I met because it's totally applicable. So I went to Italy this summer with my kids and a couple friends, and I hadn't been in like 7 years. And when I came home, I really like wanted to get my dual Italian citizenship because my grandfather was born in a little village outside of Lucca. Immigrated to the US when he was 10 years old. And so I've known that was a possibility for me, but really this summer, there was just like something about being there that really made me, it reignited this desire for the dual Italian citizenship. So I started investigating, and then I reached out, I joined Natosha's Facebook group, and then you were so awesome in responding to all of my questions. And so I started this investigation as to if I could get citizenship. And I'm actually still not sure because he was born, immigrated, like I said, when he was 10 years old. And then he moved over to the US with his dad. His dad was living here, and he was naturalized at some point, but I'm not sure when. I'm not sure if it was before 18 or after 18. So I'm still investigating that. But he came over as a little boy, and then he ended up going back to Europe to fight in World War II as a soldier, and he was stationed in Luxembourg, and happened to meet my grandmother, who was Italian as well, but her family had moved to Luxembourg during that time, and so they fell in love and got married, and the rest is, sort of history. They moved back to the United States and had 4 sons. My dad was the oldest of their boys. And so when I was growing up, I always heard my grandparents speaking Italian, but they never taught their 4 sons to speak Italian, my dad included. And so I always wanted to learn that for myself, just to connect me to my heritage. And so it wasn't until I went to school, to university, I went to UC Santa Barbara, and I took Italian as an undergraduate. I took 2 years of Italian, and then I went over to Italy to do a study abroad program. So technically, I learned Italian as an adult. I was 19 when I took my first Italian class. And I would say, people ask me often, when am I going to become fluent? And when is this magic thing that happens with fluency? And so there's this thing about, what is fluency exactly? Is it the ability to communicate your needs in any situation? Is it the ability to read high-level texts? Is it this expansive vocabulary? But I would say, after all of this, that I'm fluent in Italian. So I did my study abroad, and that actually changed the entire trajectory of my life. I came back and ended up majoring in Italian studies at UC Santa Barbara. And then I applied to grad school, and I went to the University of Notre Dame, where I was accepted into this master's program for Italian literature. And so I did a year of that. And when I was there, I was given 2 classes to teach. And so that was my first experience teaching Italian, with having had no previous experience. And so I was kind of jumped in and loved it. I loved teaching. I loved connecting with students, igniting the passion that I felt about the culture and the language. And then from that point, I moved back to California, finished my master's in teaching a foreign language, and then was hired at the local community college when I was first in the program. And I ended up teaching Italian at the community college, Italian 1, 2, those are both university transferable classes, as well as Italian conversation. And those were more to adults in the community. And I did that for 19 years until they cut the Italian program. So I have about 20 years of experience teaching Italian, and I'm still teaching Italian. I'm teaching privately now in the community.
Excellent. That is fabulous. I love your story because it's not often that you come across somebody of Italian descent who learned Italian as an adult.
Right.
And so, I know it's a source of sort of heartbreak for a lot of people of Italian descent who never got the opportunity to learn as a child with their family.
Right.
But it's something that they really, really want to do, just like yourself, to connect themselves to their heritage.
Yeah.
But there's sort of this conversation around, well, can you really learn? Can you become conversational, even not even, totally fluent, talking about high level, you're not going to maybe sit and talk politics with somebody, but like, can you even really communicate with people and, get to a level that you can do that in adulthood? And so I think a lot of people just kind of put it off because, they just think, well, like, I'm never going to get there. I don't even think it's possible for me.
Right.
So, anyway, so I love that. I love it. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Okay. So actually, let's start off with that question, maybe, because I know it's one that's on everybody's mind. So is it really possible for an adult who only speaks one language? Is it really possible for an adult to learn a foreign language? Can we do it?
Absolutamente. Absolutely. That is, I've had all of these years of experience, 20 years of experience. And like I said, I was an adult when I first started taking Italian. And I also learned Spanish in the past few years as an adult. And so that is a second, language now that I speak fluently, and it had to do, and I can talk about what I did and, what I've seen. But I think a huge piece is, it has to do with your mindset. As we get older, we tend to get more set in our ways about who I am and like what's comfortable for me and what's not comfortable for me. And so I don't know if you've ever heard of the growth mindset compared to the fixed mindset. So the growth mindset says failure is an opportunity, mistakes are good, challenge is exciting, I can learn anything. And whereas the fixed mindset says, certain people are good at learning language and others aren't, and maybe I fit into that category. And so it's really sort of wrapping yourself around this new perception, I think, of learning and yourself. And I think that's number one. And also being comfortable with the learning process. The learning process, it's hard. It is hard. I'm not going to lie and say Italian is an easy language, because it is. There's things about the grammar that are pretty difficult. but you have to be able to be okay with not understanding at all, making mistakes, sounding kind of funny. Just be gentle with yourself. That's what I always tell my students. And so when I teach classes, I think, the most important thing is to create a supportive learning environment where you are okay with making mistakes, and that, and you're not striving for perfection. If at some point you become totally fluent and you speak Italian perfectly, which I have seen in language learners who have studied, they just sound native, their accent, their grammar is perfect, but that's not the thing that's at the back of your mind, like perfection, perfection, perfection. It's more about communication and trying and opening your mouth and just, being okay with what comes out.
Yeah, and I think
part
for
of the
adults,
process.
yeah, and I think that's probably the most difficult thing for us adults, because you can be like just at the top of your game in English, right? You can be a leader in your career. You can be this strong, intelligent, ambitious person in your native language, and then you're reduced to like an infant
Yes.
in the second language, and that's really, really hard. I think as adults to sort of feel like it's a reflection on our intelligence, and who we are. And so so we can do it, everybody.
We can do it. Yes.
Do it.
If you want to do it, you can do it. And there's certain things that are going to enable you to have more success, and others,
Yeah, and totally. We're totally going to touch on some of those. So I guess it sort of leads into my next question. And that is, some people are just really good at things. Some people are like really, really good at math. And some people are just like history buffs. And some people, are some people just better at languages than others? Can any one person expect to get to a level of proficiency in a language where they can communicate their wants, their needs, their desires, and participate in the culture around them?
I'll say it again. Assolutamente.
Okay.
However, I have noticed in all of these years of studying and being a student myself that there are some people, like you said, who have this capability of, which is, it's more rare, of really like fine-tuned sort of adapting this native sound, like accent, where like when they speak the new language, you can't hear an accent. And so I'm fascinated by those people. I don't really know like exactly why. I know like my kids both did a Spanish immersion elementary school program. So from kindergarten through 6th grade, all of their classes, everything was spoken, everything was taught in Spanish, science and history and math and everything. And no English was spoken in the classroom until they got a little older, and then they added more English. But when they speak Spanish, their accent is very native sounding. So that is a part of language too, is having that sort of native sounding accent. However, I think that it's kind of cool when you hear people with their accent that makes them unique and makes them who they are. Like my Italian grandmother, she grew up in Luxembourg, and she spoke Italian growing up, and French and German and Luxembourgese, all of those languages. And so she's 95, she just turned 95, and she still, when she speaks English, you can hear her accent. It's not that she ever lost that, but that's what makes her her, and it's not a bad thing.
It's not something to be scared about. It's not something we have to be ashamed about, or there's always something that I've heard before, that is, well, if you're speaking with somebody in English who has an accent, that means that they know another language.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And so how amazing is that?
Yeah.
It's something to be celebrated, not necessarily ashamed of. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
So I hope I answered your question. I don't think that there's something, I do think though, there is a component to learning a language which has to do with memorization, because you have to know vocabulary words. And so I think some people are actually maybe better at just remembering words and memorization, but there are, if you're not good at that, there are techniques out there that can train you to be able to memorize better and to retain more information.
Ah, perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So the next thing I sort of wanted to get into is a little bit more about this learning as an adult versus learning as a child. And maybe you sort of touched upon it a little bit with the story about your kids being in a Spanish immersion.
Mhm.
But when I was sort of researching for our talk, I came across an article, an MIT article from 2018, and sort of it discusses sorry, you'll see my eyes looking up because I just don't want to get this wrong, so I've just made some
Yeah.
notes myself. They're on a different screen, so I apologize anybody if it
No
looks
problem.
like I'm reading, because I am. So it discusses the ability of children to gain a higher proficiency in a foreign language, and that it's not necessarily due to any inherent advantage that children have over language learning, but rather the difference in way children versus adults are taught a language. So namely the environmental differences. So children are often in immersive environments when they're learning as children. And they're exposed to the foreign language, all throughout the day, many times a day, where adults, we kind of try to fit language learning into our already busy lives. So we may pick up a grammar book and try to self-study for 30 minutes here or there. Maybe we'll try a conversation course. We get busy, we put it to bed, and then, a year or two later, we pick it up again. And so would you say, sort of in your own experience, both in learning languages, because you've now learned 2 foreign languages as an adult, but also your experience with teaching, is your experience consistent with this idea of exposure being one of the fundamental aspects of someone's ability to acquire a foreign language to any sort of proficiency?
I would say definitely, like if you talk about the child that does an immersion program, yes, that exposure, it's huge, it's enormous. It's the thing that really like contributes to the fluency. And then being in a foreign country, if you're there, but I don't think that that's honestly the main thing, because I feel like you can find classes here that stimulate you in ways that you produce conversation and you really integrate the language, and you can take that and then you can blend it with different things where you can really learn it well. I've seen students really like do amazingly well in 2 semesters of Italian with me, and by the end of Italian 2, they're speaking Italian conversationally, spontaneously, answering, and that has to do with just meeting, 2 times a week for 2 semesters, but they've supplemented their learning in various ways. So I have a student, I have gone back and forth between doing online one-on-one work with people through Zoom. We used to do Skype, but I have a student who I've worked with that lives in New York for the past 2.5 years, and we meet once a week. Well, now we're meeting twice a month, but she's the perfect example of really somebody who's gained fluency that isn't immersed. And so I can sort of talk about what she's done, because I think it's really sort of like pinnacle. She has taken a class in the community the entire time that we've been working together. So she's got this group of people where it's it was online through COVID. They met on Zoom, but it used to be in person. I think they're moving back to in person. But I think a class is really important to sort of push you out of your comfort zone and force you to talk to people and to have you do homework, because nobody really likes homework, but it's sort of kind of important to go back. It's like doing math. You want to be able to do it on your own. Make sure you can do it on your own so you can go back, and helps integrating the language. So she's got that class, and then she reached out to me to do one-on-one lessons with her. And then our lessons are based in conversation. We have a conversation for most of the time, and then I also give her homework exercises, and so we go over the specifics of the grammar. And I think those 2 things, and then the enthusiasm that she has, obviously, and the desire that she has to go to Italy, like I think all of that really contributes in a positive way to fluency.
So it's definitely a multifaceted approach. You not just
Yes.
by sitting in a classroom for an hour or two a couple times a week are you, probably going to become fluent. There's probably a number of other things that you need to do,
Yeah.
which is actually perfect segue into my next question, which was actually about, what are, in your opinion, what are the most effective language learning tools that we should have in our toolbox? Is it a matter of everybody learns differently, or is there actual evidence that says doing X, Y, Z is more efficient and more effective when it comes to acquiring a foreign language?
Yeah. So I would say, the number one thing, like we had talked about before, was your mindset, just that frame of like how you're approaching learning language. And then I would recommend, if you can, take a class in the community or online, because I do think taking a class really helps. But certain classes are going to promote conversation more than others. So if you can find a class that really is about conversation, then I think that is a great, that should be the class that you take. I think that connecting as much as you can with speakers is kind of is pretty big, and they don't have to be native Italian speakers. They can be people like you that are on the journey to learning Italian, but having people that you can study with, or having people that you can connect with in that way. But if you're, in your community, you can find, if there are any resources there, maybe there's an Italian center somewhere, or maybe there are a group of Italians living where you live. Like we have a group of Italians living in Chico, and I try to get everybody together when we can. I mean, COVID threw a wrench in all of that, but it's important and I always invite my students and so everybody can get together and sort of have that exposure. There is this really great language learning app that I feel like a lot of people don't know about, because I never see it in the top. They say Babbel and Rosetta Stone and all of these, but we used it at the college where I taught. It's called Mango, and the way that the program, have you heard of it?
I have heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. I love the whole philosophy, because you're being forced to speak it, and you're given isolated chunks, and then you're forced to put all of those together. And so you're having to think the whole time. It's not just rote memorization and regurgitation. They'll give you like, a vocabulary word, and it's repetitive, and you say it, you say it, you say it, another vocabulary word, you say it, you say it, you say it. And then at the end, they're like, how do you say this? And so you go through all of these programs. And I think forcing you to speak it, as well as being able to read it, and then putting it all together, I think that's huge. So if you can't, I'm just going to keep going unless you
Yep.
want to. Did you?
Yep.
Okay.
Nope. Go ahead.
Well, because I think, like I said, reach out to people. And then a lot of people, like I get emails often through my website where people, they say, I found your YouTube videos. Thank you so much. Because there's no Italian resources in my community. There's no Italian classes. There's no Italians that live here. And this is great that I can learn Italian from you through YouTube in this way. So the online resources, like Mango is a language learning app, but there are these language apps that actually connect you to native speakers. One is called Tandem and one is called Hello Talk, and I think they're great. I actually recommend them always to my students. If I'm teaching adults, I don't recommend them if I'm teaching kids, because I don't want to, because you're online and you're meeting, connecting with people. So but I think they're really, really awesome, because you start immediately just having conversations with people. Where do you live? What's your name? What do you like to do in your free time? And so you're being forced to create sentences and then respond, and you can leave audio messages as well. So you can like listen, and then you can practice on the audio component. And then there are like video chats available if you're comfortable doing that. But some people aren't comfortable doing that, and that's okay. If you are, I think it's a great resource.
Mhm. And
So, and then I always tell my students, just, expose yourself as much as you can, whether through watching movies, in Italian, or finding an Italian, artist that you like and listening to Italian, maybe when you're on a walk or run or working out or whatever. And the more that you can, hear it, the better. But I do think it is good to have, a resource too, that you can sort of check, like a book. That's why, so I created the YouTube channel. It's called Learn Italian for Travel. And I made all of these videos, and then I ended up writing the book because people were like, I don't understand this or that. And so the book is sort of the physical, supplement to the videos.
and that's this one. Oh no, I'm blurred. I don't know if you can see this. Oh no.
It's kind of going in and out. I see it now. Yeah, there it is.
There you go. So that's the ABCs of Italian travel. And actually, so Danielle sent me a copy of this book in anticipation of our meeting. And I really loved it, actually. I thought it was great.
Thank you.
There we go.
There it is.
I really like the way that it's laid out, because sometimes when you open an Italian book or a grammar book, and it's just words, right? It's just lots of words and letters, and it's really daunting. But I like how everything's sort of color coded, and you give sort of tips or tricks in here about just like a whole bunch of different things. I had a page here, actually. Now I've lost it. I wanted to use it as an example. And it was just really good. Of course, I should have bookmarked it. But yeah, so you can order this through Amazon.
Yeah, it's sold on Amazon, and that's a better website than Barnes and Noble. It is sold on barnesandnoble.com as well.
Okay, so yeah, if anybody is interested in this book, I will put the link to the Amazon link in the comments when we're done here. And I can also put a couple other links, maybe one to your YouTube channel, because I know you have lots of great videos there, and I've watched a couple, and they're fantastic.
Thank you.
So as well as your website. And so you also do some one-on-one coaching.
Yeah, I was doing it so I was teaching part-time for many years, teaching Italian part-time. And so I had more time to do the one-on-one lessons, but now I have a full-time teaching job at a high school. And so I'm unfortunately not teaching Italian there. I'm teaching Spanish and cooking and dance and community outreach, just other things. But so I don't have as much time right now. I would consider doing it again in the summer, just sort of like a few months of like, when I have those chunks of time. But yeah, I just can't really fit it in, unfortunately, right now.
Yeah. But this is a great resource too for somebody who is learning, or maybe learning by other methods, and not having one-on-one Zooms with you, maybe. But just, yeah, this is fabulous. I love this book.
Thank you.
And so what about, I should say too, if anybody has any questions for Danielle, feel free to put them in the chat. And we can ask Danielle. So she probably won't see them, but I'm in the Facebook group. Well, I mean, Danielle's in our Facebook group too, but I don't know. She probably doesn't have the live video up, but I have it up, so I can see everybody's comments. So if you have any questions for Danielle specifically about learning Italian or a certain resource, then just pop it in the chat, and I'll keep my eye on the chat as we go along, and I'm sure Danielle will be happy to answer those. Okay, so my next question is about immersion classes for people who want to travel to Italy. So I know there are a few different schools or universities that do that. And I've known a few people who have gone, I guess some with mixed reviews. I think the ones who go for a shorter amount of time find it a little more overwhelming than maybe those who are setting aside a chunk of time to be there and really immerse themselves. So I don't know what your experience has been. If you've ever had any students go off and do an exchange or an immersion in Italy.
I've had a few students go and be au pairs, which
Yes.
is pretty cool, because then they're hanging out with the kids all day, and what a great way to learn the language, by this non-intimidating teacher.
Right.
I have had students, so at Butte College, I don't know if you're familiar with the community college system here in the US, but it's like a transfer, like you would go 2 years and then you would transfer to a university. So we didn't have any study abroad programs through Butte, those kinds of opportunities. So I have had students that studied, well, actually I did have one student that she was taking my class. She ended up being the TA in the class because she had gone to Italy. She did a study abroad, but it was in high school. So, but she had lived over there for the year in high school. She was completely fluent when she came back. But took my class
Just for fun.
Yeah. But I don't know personally. I've looked before, and I've actually reached out to a few schools just to see what their programs were like. I don't know about schools that are in Italy and like private schools and like what that experience is like. So I'm sorry, yeah, I can't really give any like recommendations on any of
I
that.
just
Or
didn't know if you had any students that you found it like they found it very helpful to be an immersion setting, any more helpful than they did, back in their home country learning Italian, just,
yeah,
via classes or what have you.
yeah,
So,
not nobody like from my classes at Butte went to
mm,
do like a study abroad program like that. But the adult learners that I've taught throughout the years of teaching the conversation class,
mhm.
many people took my class as a preparation for traveling to Italy. So
Uh,
that was more, it was like, send you off now. You have the tools to be able to ask directions and order food and all of that stuff. And I did get some great reviews from people when they came back, like, wow, everything you taught like was totally applicable and I used all of that. So that made me feel pretty good about, you know, what I was doing in that class, which was like preparing people in situations where they would need to use.
and probably gave them the motivation and made the desire to probably keep learning. If you
Yeah,
feel like you're competent,
yeah,
and they felt like
exactly.
they had reached a certain level of competency, then that would obviously hopefully have them continue on the learning path. Um,
Yeah.
okay, so what advice or tips and tricks maybe do you have for people who are at the beginning stages of learning a foreign language as an adult? So whether that's, Italian, I know we're focusing on Italian here, but again, you said you've also learned Spanish within the last few years. And
Mhm.
so even, we have a neat perspective from you as a teacher, as an instructor, but also as a language learner yourself. So what advice can you give to people?
I think, I mean, I keep talking about take a class, find a class, whether it's in person or online, because I feel like that's what really helped me learn Spanish. Because I was teaching at the community college, and so I had my colleagues were teaching the Spanish classes. So I took Spanish 2, 3, and 4. And then, I was in the classroom with a bunch of kids, like my kids age, like 18, 19 years old. And it was humbling for me because I'm a teacher and I have, these degrees, and then all of a sudden I'm back at this level, and I think that feeling of being humbled and feeling like, we don't need to talk about degrees and age, and we're on the same like playing field, all of us, and the class forces you out of your comfort zone. And so I think that's super important. You have assignments to do, you have presentations that you have to give, you have to stand up in front of the class and talk about this and that, and so that forces you to study more, and then to be able to begin to like really articulate yourself, through writing, speaking, reading, all of it. And so that for me was huge in learning Spanish. And then we went to Costa Rica and we did a study abroad, my kids and I. So that really helped. We were there for 5 weeks and we took classes every day, on Monday through Friday for 4 hours. So yeah, the study abroad thing it's pretty powerful, that immersion and being there, like we were saying, it's not completely necessary. And Spanish is easier than Italian because I can go out, around the city that I live in and find opportunities to speak Spanish frequently, which with Italian, it's not the same.
So basically, what I'm hearing a lot through our discussion is you're going to have to put yourself in those uncomfortable situations.
Yes.
In order to learn. So
yes.
If you are nervous to join a class or, an online Zoom or a conversation group in the community, and it's making you feel, really uncomfortable and really nervous and that you're not ready and you shouldn't do it, then you probably need to do it.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's good. We need to keep growing, right? And that's really sort of the part of like, not even related to language, but anything in life is like, we need to kind of get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that pushes us to this like next level of, really growth in any way. So the classes, like I said earlier, though, some people they can't find an online class or they don't have that in their community. And so, that's why I made those YouTube videos. And some people, they really help a lot of people. Some people want more. I mean, they're good. Like you said, what is the person that's like never studied? Like, where can they start? You can start with YouTube, if not even my channel. There's tons of instructional videos on YouTube. It's a free resource. There's a lot of free resources out there. So I think that piece is like, should be coupled with actual interaction with other people, though, because the part about, language is the spontaneity and this, like, someone just said something and what were they saying? And now I have to respond. And so if you're just doing everything online without that interactive piece, it's not going to help you when you go to Italy and, you want to order a cappuccino, and what do I say?
So the grammar classes are great, and picking up something that might be interesting to you, like a book, even if it's like a juvenile Italian book, or listening to music and trying to translate, and that's all really great, and it'll probably really further your learning and give you vocabulary. But unless what I'm hearing you say is, unless you're sort of coupling that with actual interaction with other Italian speakers, you won't grow into the next level of being able to communicate spontaneously with people.
Right. Yeah. I had a student one time that told me she had studied Italian for, a couple of years, and then she got to Italy and she was so nervous about speaking. She didn't want to ask for a taxi and ended up walking like 3 miles with her suitcase because she was just nervous. But so if you don't practice that feeling of like being put on the spot and like coming up with language, then you might just shut down. So it's all just about practice and just being, like I said, gentle with yourself through the process. But I mean, I think like, that just emphasize the trying and the communication rather than I have to sound perfect. I think that's huge for yourself. You have to do that for yourself too.
So I actually like that you ended on that note, because we have a couple of questions about pronunciation. Okay. And so we have one group member who said, I've been trying to learn Italian for about 4 years through a class in the community. And now a one-on-one tutor, but I'm still struggling with pronunciation. Are there any tips on how to improve in this area? And we also have a similar comment saying, I have the same problem. I keep putting the accent on the wrong syllable. So do you have any suggestions in improving pronunciation? And like you said, it doesn't all have to be perfect. And the goal may not be to speak Italian without an English accent at all, but of course you want to be understandable. You want somebody to be able to comprehend what you're actually saying.
Right.
So how can somebody practice that?
Well, let me tell you something first that might make those people that have the questions feel a little bit better. Italians sometimes don't know where the accents are in the words if they've never seen the word. Because Italian, the rule is that the accent is on the second to the last syllable, unless there's a written accent on the last vowel. But there's a lot of words that defy those rules. So it could be, on this certain syllable, but it could maybe it isn't. So like having native Italian, speakers tell me that before, like sometimes we don't know like how to say that either, sort of made me feel a little bit better. So yeah, with the pronunciation, I think I don't know if these the people that ask the questions, if they're practicing like saying, like I when I was in Italy doing my study abroad, my Italian roommates, when they were studying for their test, they would read out loud from their book. So that was how they practice their pronunciation as Italians, and like practice the memorization. So I think if you could maybe read out loud and just practice that flow, and and if you can take a small piece, whatever it is, and read it and see, I'm getting the right, right pronunciation. Then if you're uncertain about a word, look up that word on Google Translate and make sure that you are hitting that pronunciation in the right spot.
Are there apps available where you can do where you have maybe a native speaker say a sentence or a phrase, and you can see, you can read along with what they're saying, and you can see how they're pronouncing words, where the syllable is, and then you are saying it after them?
Well,
Or
Mango,
something like that?
that's
Okay.
why I love Mango, because it's given the word, you say it, you hit the button, the native speaker says the word, so you hear exactly how it's pronounced, and then you're given, that repetition, you're repeatedly saying whatever it is, piatto, tavolo, da da da, like over and over, and then they give you another word, and then you do that with the same thing, and then they give you the sentence, and then you say the sentence out loud, and then you hit that little button, and you hear exactly how it's supposed to sound. So that's huge, right? You have to be able to hear it correctly. So I recommend Mango to everybody, because I think it's the best language learning app. And you can get it, like we had it free through Butte College. You can get it free through public libraries. So I found it for my Spanish students at the junior high where I was teaching at, offered free through the Berkeley public library. And so you could just sign up for a digital library card, and then you have access to those.
Libraries are a great
Yes.
resource, even for those people who are searching for documents and stuff for their dual citizenship. Because a lot of libraries will have those subscriptions, so Ancestry and
Oh, really?
other paid subscriptions, so you don't have to buy them yourself. You can just go to the public library and search there. So I guess you can do that with language learning apps as well. So definitely check your public library, I guess, to see if they have what you need. Excellent. So I will search up the link. I'm sure Mango, I know it's an app, but I'm sure it has a website. So I can search that up, and I will put it in the chat box for everybody when we're done here. So you can learn more about the app and hopefully get your Italian learning started.
Yeah, I think you can buy, the subscription to Mango, and you can pay for it. But, as much as we can, if we can find those free resources through the library system, that's ideal.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions here. So I think, oh, let me just double check. Nope. Okay, we're good. So yeah, that's it for my questions as well. Thank you so much, Danielle, for being here with us today. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, and I hope it has really motivated everybody to start learning Italian or continue learning Italian, or getting through, if you're learning, but you're going through a tough time, and you're really feeling defeated, to just keep going, keep moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. And now that, everything's changing and getting better with COVID, we can travel again, where it's been really hard, obviously, the past few years. So that is a great, motivation, is going there to use it, as well as getting your dual citizenship, and both of those things just
You can stay as long as you want in Italy
yeah.
and practice language all you want. Excellent. Oh, well, thank you so much, Danielle, for chatting with us today. And thank you to everybody who's watching. And we'll see you next Sunday for, I don't even know if I've thought about the topic yet. Anyway, keep your eyes peeled in the Facebook group for the next topic on Italian citizenship by descent, which will be next Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, as always. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Danielle. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. It was a great time. Thank you.